A very good evening. You're most welcome to Smart24 TV. This is the business edition that we always do every Sunday, like at this very time, where we're going to have a look at the stories that made the headlines in our weekly bulletin. Among the stories we're going to look at is the budget framework paper scrutiny that took place at the Parliament of Uganda, where over 49.8 trillion was set. That is the budget that we're going to have in 2022-2023. More of many stories will be coming up in your way. Let me just go in for a short commercial break, and then after, I'll be right back. Stay around. Welcome back from that commercial break. The business edition starts now. Like I said, we're going to start with the budget framework paper that was scrutinized in the Parliament of Uganda by the Parliamentary Committee on Budgeting, where over 49.9 trillion was set to be the budget of the 2022-2023. Among the allocations was the security and roads that took the lion's share of this very budget. However, some of the MPs were like, why are we having the lion's share going to security since there's no any chaos that is going on? Our reporter from the Parliament, Samuel Hanifa, was on ground. Let us have more of these details.
While presenting the budget framework paper for the year 2023-2024, the State Minister for Finance, Henry Musasizi, has informed the Budget Committee of how the national shocks and global shocks have affected the economy, which have contributed to the rising interest rates, imported inflation, lower export demand, among others.
Occasioned by global and national shocks, which include 1. High inflation, 2. Tightening financial conditions in most regions, 3. Russia-Ukraine conflict, and 4. The negative effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Subsequently, the above shocks have led to 1. Rising interest rates, imported inflation,
tourism is going to have had 89 is going to remain the same. This is number 04. It's 05. You are going to allocate it only 89 billion. But you've spent all your money, there's so much trillion, on these other things. Even when you go to agriculture, that one, you are almost now increasing it to 1.49 because you have a parish development model there. So when you take away the parish development model, of which there is no money, even energy. So therefore, when you look at energy development, you have allocated it 38 billion. I see this is number 2. And you did not arrange, this time you did not arrange them in terms of from the low cost to the high cost. You arranged it just like that.
According to Honorable Chivumbi, the government should be transparent about tax collection. Now that URA has received almost 29 trillion shillings in the income, it should begin settling the public debt and lowering on the borrowing.
Our revenue collection, we are nearly 19 trillion, like 5 years ago. Today, it is projected to be 29. Now, as you, when you look at the increase, you would realize we've been gaining in revenue. Why aren't you deliberately making no attempt at going after to redeem that so that you stop the hemorrhage? Is it a fictitious figure that you use it for just, because I don't see any planning, even at a small level, common sense planning, where if I realize more revenue, I don't go towards settling my debt, where I'm paying a lot of interest. This year, why do you reborrow? Instead of saying this year critically, give us a roadmap where you are saying across 5 years, we are going to have settled this every year, and it hemorrhages us by over 3 trillion, which is so critical, and you are making no attempt. So is this figure genuine? Oh, you're also using it as a conduit for just siphoning resources in interest payment.
The MPs have also confronted government with explaining how it plans to push the economy to 6% growth with this financial year, as stated in the budget framework document, at a time when the world is in a global recession.
Now, given the global trend and sub-Saharan African trend of slowing down, really, what magic will Uganda use in isolation to realize such economic growth? I really doubt that this is really possible. Maybe, as the chair suggested, when we have another meeting, we may need some detailed statistical, empirical evidence to show that we are likely to grow on that trend. My second observation is looking at priority areas in the budget. I find extremely a gap. I don't see tourism because, in my view, given our historic experience before COVID-19, it is tourism that would bring in money very quickly.
The budget framework paper has officially been sent to the sectoral committees for review. Some legislators think that this is business as usual. Like the previous budgets, security together with transport have taken the biggest share. Samla Hanifa, Smart24 TV.
Yeah, that was the budgetary scrutinizing in the Parliament of Uganda, trying to see where a lot of money should go or where a lot of funds should go. I've seen very many members of Parliament, the likes of Mwanga Chivumbi, the minister, the MP from Butambala, trying to make some good statements over there. But now, we did not just stop at the budget framework paper. Smart24 TV had to make a follow-up to see what other Ugandans are saying in as far as these allocations are concerned. I went to Siatin, Uganda. Jane Nalunga was like, Ugandan fund, most of the budgetary resources would have gone to tourism, agriculture, though security is also crucial, but it would have been, it's not very important to put a lot of money to security since there's no anything causing any threat in the nation of Uganda. We did this story, and let's have more of these very details.
The Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development has backed the government's choice to give security and governance financing top priority in the upcoming national budget for 2023-2024. According to Jane Nalunga, the Executive Director of Siatin, Uganda, the majority of them should have been allocated to viable industries like agriculture, tourism, as she explains to Smart24 TV.
If we are talking about industrialization and market access and productive sectors, you would expect that would provide more resources to agro-industrialization. Agro-industrialization takes into consideration issues around agricultural production and productivity, value addition, issues around market access. They are given again around 1.4 trillion. 1.4 trillion, that's where agriculture is, issues of industry, issues of market access. 1.4 trillion, that's very little money.
While appearing before the Parliament's Budget Committee to present the 2023-2024 National Budget Framework paper, the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development was tasked to explain why security budget had remained cost, yet the 16 trillion recurring classified security equipment has been retired. Henry Musasizi, the State Minister of Finance for General Duties, argues in defense of their action that everything was done legally.
Chair, 3 or 4 years ago, we were taken to hotel by the then Minister of Finance, Honorable Bahati, and requested us to okay a continued defense expenditure annually of 1 trillion for special acquisition of a special defense equipment, which was classified. And the annual total over the cost of 10 years has been 16 trillion on that project. But that project was retired as per Annexure 5. So making a saving of 1 trillion. But I see the figure not reducing by that amount, but increasing. When you have retired that expenditure, I want the minister to tell us.
According to Jane Nalunga, while examining the budget, the priorities should come first and then the enablers last.
And Mr. Chairman, I wish to state before this committee and Parliament that whatever is happening is being done in accordance with the law.
Out of the 49.9 trillion, government anticipates receiving 28.8 trillion in tax revenue collected domestically. The remaining amount will be funded by borrowing on the domestic and international markets. The government plans to set up administrative measures to achieve a revenue collection target of 28.8 trillion, including closing all gaps that result in revenue losses, such as document falsification, reviews of exemptions to limit them, enhance taxpayers' education, and registering more taxpayers.
Yeah, this is all about budget and some of the follow-ups that we've been doing here. Although security is crucial, some of the Ugandans feel that the majority of the budgetary resources should have gone to tourism, agriculture, and some other productive ventures of this country. That's what some other people are feeling or are thinking of. Now, getting to another story here, I'm seeing undermined social security development, low-income people struggling with unclear retirement packages and investment. According to the stories, they're saying for Ugandans, just 49% of the national employees afford to remit employee contribution to the National Social Security Fund. A reporter had more details of this, and let's have a look at this very story.
Approximately 19 million Ugandans are recorded in the working bracket as per Uganda Bureau of Statistics, and surprisingly just 1.3 million are members in the National Social Security Fund. This has effectively evoked the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development to chip in and effect the 6 billion budget allocation to enforce execution of NSSF's wavering mandate.
Under that overall budget, I approved 220 billion for operations. Out of the 220 billion for operations, I indicated that allocate 6 billion for activities to drive the implementation of the new law with the target of expanding coverage and ensuring compliance.
NSSF's mandate has recently been challenged by public distrust of the contentious midterm access to members' contributions and payments, investment schemes and profitability that eventually oversaw the amendment of NSSF Act just last year and further echoed by the ongoing investigations into allegations of corruption and mismanagement.
The fundamental thing at the fund. Any Ugandan can write a letter requesting for money. I get requests from the Catholic Church, I get requests from the Rotary Union, I get requests from the Union.
Followed today that is around 17.8 trillion, almost 18 trillion, is invested in asset classes approved by us, the regulator, and we can confirm that 76% of that has been invested in government securities, which can even be traced back to the central depository system at the central bank. 12% of that is invested in equities. Again, the value, the amount of the equities and the pricing of the equities can be traced back through the Uganda Securities Exchange. That total gives around 90% of the portfolio. The remaining percentage, which is around 7%, which is in real estate, is probably the subject of investigation, and the others are known asset classes of deposits, cash deposits, and equities that are not listed on the stock exchange.
The fund, whose net worth stands at 17.25 trillion shillings, has served beyond a retirement benefit scheme, utilizing its investment strategy to becoming one of the government's key bondholders, lending chunks of money to the state amidst mixed reactions.
The solid fund. Why should I go and borrow from abroad when there is money here?
The investment strategies of NSSF prior to the amendment of this NSSF Act 2022, before the amendment of the law, was clear. But with the insertion of Section 30 into the law now, it has made the investment strategy and prudential guidelines that they should follow to invest people's money vague.
As Uganda pushes for a comprehensive retirement benefit scheme for both public servants and private members, the Social Security Fund's pension scheme and equity of employers in the private sector will be crucial for success. Samlanifa, Samuel Chirmonda, Smart24 TV.
That's all about the National Social Security Fund and trying to make sure that most of the Ugandans can remit to the National Social Security Fund. Now, getting to another story here. We're saying that the MPs, this is Ugandan parliamentarians, are now making a U-turn. They want Constituency Development Fund back. MPs claim that by the time they went for Christmas, they got a lot of pressure from their voters, trying to put them on pressure, telling them to construct roads, giving them money for development and some other property. So now, MP Nyangwe, so the one of the movers of this move, was saying this is the time the Constituency Development Fund should be coming back, and this will be helping in as far as its service delivery of some of the constituencies is concerned. Let's have a look at what they had to say about that very story.
Upon return from their Christmas breaks, a few MPs lamented the pressure they had experienced as voters camped outside their gates with a number of demands, including construction of roads, the payment of school fees, the purchase of food and meat, and the payment of burial bills that were more than they could afford. In light of this, therefore, they have asked government to revive the Constituency Development Fund in order to shield them from the pressure of the many requests from the electorates.
But now when we are asked to provide ambulance services, to do roads, to drill boreholes, to maintain boreholes, to fundraise for schools, construction of classroom blocks, we have seen members of parliament fundraising to buy land to construct sub-county headquarters, which is the lowest government level, according to the arrangement we have now in Uganda, that the local council 3 is the lowest service delivery unit. But if a member of parliament is burdened to to buy land, to construct sub-county headquarters, a government establishment, then we must support the idea of coming up with a constituency development fund.
Prior to being eliminated by the Parliamentary Commission in 2011 due to lack of accountability and misuse of the fund by some of the MPs, the Constituency Development Fund provided each MP with 10 million annually to support development activities in their constituency. However, other MPs were not in support of this move.
Development fund to be reintroduced, and the government pays the members of parliament a development fund, is not possible. First of all, it is irregular because a member of parliament is supposed to provide an oversight on government agencies that are implementing government programs and projects. So who will audit those members of parliament when they get the money? Who will check them? The fact that there is nobody to check them, there is no system to use, they should leave the money for development to pass through the districts and sub-counties. Then they follow the money there. Then they keep on checking them.
The members of parliament are pushing for the reestablishment of Constituency Development Fund. However, members of public are saying this is not necessary because government has got other programs like the parish development model on ground and other programs that should be serving in as far as service delivery is concerned. We are here at Anti-Corruption Coalition Uganda, where we're going to meet Mr. Molan, the Executive Director, to make an insight and tell us whether this is very important. However, others are saying since this program was scrapped off due to lack of accountability, this is not the time government or members of parliament should push for this. Let's go and meet Mr. Molan Agaba of Anti-Corruption Coalition Uganda.
For these programs that are supposed to be reaching, you have, like, for instance, the parish development model should be reaching people at the grassroots. I mean, so if we have all these programs, how different will CDF be? So in my opinion, I think really it is not necessary, it's not needed. Let the members of parliament do their work, let them exercise oversight over government, let them appropriate resources to the sectors that need those resources, let them educate the public about their responsibilities. Because, I mean, even if members of parliament are given 10 million, even if it is 20 or 50, that money still would not be sufficient in the constituencies. And then also it brings in issues of fairness. If I'm a member of parliament, I've been given 50 million. I may decide to give that money to only my supporters. What about the people who didn't support?
Legislators claim that government has abandoned service delivery in constituencies and put a big burden on MPs to deliver government services to people, which is very unfair to them.
They should educate the people and the people should know their responsibilities. Because, you see, we have created a problem, and it's becoming a very big problem, where citizens think that it should be the role of members of parliament to do this, provide these services. Yet it's not. And that's why there's a lot of burden on members of parliament. That's why they're being compromised here and here. You hear they have received 40 million, they have received 29 million, but when in actual sense the pressures are too much.
That's where my argument has been that the planned activities are not undertaken because money is not released. And we believe money is not released because of lack of proper follow-up and pressure from the user units. They lack the teeth to bite. For example, parish development model. We have started the budget process for the third year of the parish development model. The third year. We had the first year where 20 million, I think, was allocated. We had the second year where 100 million was appropriated, whereby we are halfway and we expect 50 million should have been released. But I want to tell you that in my constituency where I have a number of parishes, none of the parishes has received the parish development fund money.
Some MPs contend that despite the fund being abolished 12 years ago, constituents continue to harass them and accuse them of not using the Constituency Development Fund. Additionally, they demand a larger sum than the 10 million that was initially available.
If the Constituency Development Fund is revived, it will help in the service delivery of each and every district in Uganda. But with over 500 constituencies, will the government be able to provide 10 million per constituency? Pedson Mumbere, Smart24 TV. Yeah, this is all about the Constituency Development Fund. MPs trying to think that this should have come back or should come back at this very moment. But still, there are some other MPs who are not in favor of this move. I saw Molan from the Anti-Corruption Uganda. It's like, this is not the time this fund should be coming, because we have a lot of programs like Parish Development Model, Imyoga. All these things are meant for development in some of the districts and constituencies. So the Constituency Development Fund is not necessary. That's according to other people. And now, yeah, they're saying MPs claim voters gave them sleepless nights in the Christmas where they begged money for food, meat, and other items during the festive season. They also believe that this would help. If this fund comes back, it will help them close a huge gap in as far as constituency demands is concerned. Let's get to another story here. Uganda Revenue Authority has tried to slap some of the taxes on the entertainment sector, and the entertainment sector is also crying out. And this way is it leaving the upcoming artists who are saying these taxes are not going to help them to come up with their good music, because they inject in a lot of money. And when they're still upcoming, they find it very hard to pay taxes, even when they have started getting, even when they haven't yet started getting a return on investment. Let us have a look at this very story coming up from the entertainment sector.
The new plan for taxing entertainers' incomes was laid forth by the Uganda Revenue Authority at the beginning of the 2023 calendar year. This is one of the revenue strategies being implemented for the fiscal year 2023-2024, which starts in July, with the intention of expanding the tax base and raising the tax to GDP ratio, which has increased from 6.83% 20 years ago to 13% in 2021-2022. One of Uganda Revenue Authority's suggestions is to tax the entertainment industry. However, upcoming musicians have expressed disagreement to this idea. They urge that because they are still developing, this will hamper their growth.
As an artist, I'm going to be so much effective because I earn at last. The protocol, when you go, the promoter has to get, the producer has to get, the whatever has to get. Me, I earn at last. So I'm going to be getting the less price and the less payments. And yet I'm investing in much time, much effort, passion, and whatever. I need a lot. You know, music costs a lot. I have to dress up well, I have to be well.
First of all, I've not been guided on how I'm going to gain or how I'm going to achieve anything from it. Because there are taxes have come before I even know where I'm standing in this industry. First of all, I'm an upcoming artist. I haven't worked. I don't even know very well. So I don't know exactly what I'm going to gain with this URA tax before even I've gained in the industry. So I just think
even these artists we are managing, they are likely to pull out, because if somebody's expectation to earn was so high and then out of the blue it gets into a reduction because of the new introduction of the new taxation, then this guy is going to say, now what am I chasing given this whatever? Let me pull out, and then I go into another field where I can feel comfortable, probably where the taxation is not so exorbitant.
Francis Muwonge, the CEO of Rotana Records, is concerned that the abrupt taxation may have unfavorable long-term effects, since it would force event organizers to raise ticket prices, which may cause many customers to move their leisure choices to more affordable activities.
Also, we need to know, they brought that tax in which spirit? Secondly, to me, I believe it will have some impacts. Some impacts can be negative, others will be positive. The negative impacts will be that given that the taxes have been now placed into action, it's going to reduce the earnings of these artists, because now me, like the promoter, if they tax me, I'm going to shift the tax burden to the amount I was supposed to, to transfer to my artist in case somebody wants to buy that artist out.
Furthermore, they have asked the government to verify the backgrounds of potential musicians before choosing any, especially upcoming ones. They have also urged the government to meet with them and determine a standard price.
The only thing the government has to do is that, can it first sit down with all the stakeholders in this industry, and if they want to realize some taxation out of this industry, we agree on how much that cannot affect us and cannot affect them.
Some of the taxes imposed on the entertainment sector include income tax and withholding tax, which are both withheld at source by event organizers at a rate of 6% on any payments given to local artists. Value-added tax, which is paid by the ultimate consumer and is levied
a leader. Be magic.
He must be rich, tall, handsome, from a respectable family. He must have a maid, because at our home we do not work.
Conductor Masao.
Why? Obadde olobye ku ssimu?
Yamunange, anti your TV enkolera.
Enjoy a new world of entertainment with over 80 TV and radio channels, plus movies from wherever you are. Download the GOTV Channels app from your app store and enjoy 30 days of free streaming with MTN.
GOTV Channels.
Smart24, driving business.
Welcome back from that commercial break. The business edition is still going on. Now we are going to discuss the cooperative banks. Most of the Ugandan agriculturists have been crying for the revival of cooperative banks in Uganda before 7 years ago, but up to now they have not received this. And they have made a lot of cry outs, alarms to the government to make sure that all these cooperative banks should be brought back for them to access capital and try to get more of the agricultural productivity. Let us have more of this very
May I commend, if possible, I want to speak like Nicole Machiveri. Machiveri says a prince should do good when it's possible and use extra measures when it is necessary. So I would think it is, if possible, a cooperative bank model to serve one purpose.
Government funding is dispersed across a number of programs, including Parish Development Model, NADS, Emyoga, Women Development Fund, in Luwelo and Northern Uganda Development Funds. But the truth is, what people really need is an agriculture and cooperative bank can finance their ideas, but not so many development schemes.
Of how cooperative movement and the cooperative bank, by the time I was joining high school, I think the cooperative bank here, Uganda Cooperative Bank, had collapsed. And so I have own experiences of people making statements on how useful it was. But we can borrow experience from other countries where cooperatives do exist. First and foremost, a cooperative model is a model of resource pooling. You have, I love the phrase the President Museveni used recently of collective wealth. He used it at some point, collective wealth, in which we create a common pool of resources, mobilize these resources amongst ourselves, and then put it in an institution that we own, and then this institution enables us to develop our households.
For the government to manage the challenge of finances in the poverty eradication schemes, it must create one finance vehicle instead of using different ventures whose main objectives is to maximize profits. Rona Nahabwe, Smart24 TV.
Thank you, Rona Nahabwe, for that particular story. That story, you did it and it was very good. You see, according to statistics, over 70% of the Ugandans are dealing in agriculture. So they believe that if these cooperative banks are brought back, they will help them access capital at a lesser interest. So it's very important to have all these banks coming back in order to enhance agricultural productivity in very many parts of the country. Still going into another story that's related to agriculture, I'm seeing here experts have advised farmers to go for better farming practices ahead of the Uganda's dry season dilemma that will be coming up in here. And most of the products that, most of the agricultural products that are affected are cabbage, skuma wheat, and some other agricultural products. So they're saying farmers should adopt better farming products to make sure that we have a better agricultural productivity. More of this story was done by Samuel Kirimonda and voiced, and let's have more of this very story.
Uganda is anticipated to experience a short dry season, causing crop damage and low harvests. Tomatoes, cabbages, green peppers and coffee are some of the products grown in various regions. But what can be done to help farmers increase production? Speaking with experts, they urged farmers to be alert of fake agricultural products being used to spray their crops, which is complicating Kenya's decision to forbid the import of maize from Uganda.
Well, last year there was a shortage of maize, and it came as a result of the same. In fact, the other year we had a lot of drought and then movement restrictions. It resulted in the shortage of maize, and it forced some farmers to start engaging in funny behavior. Region-wise, we had a setback whereby the Kenyan market banned importation of our seed, our maize grain, because of an allegation of aflatoxins and that kind of stuff. But on scrutiny, we realized that it was not only just aflatoxin. It had something to do with the quality.
Ambrose Odru urges farmers to focus on product quality in order to avoid problems with exportation and get access to global markets.
To first, when they harvest their maize, ensure they first dry it for at least 2 to 3 days before they thresh. Because farmers are fond of getting shortcuts, they harvest the maize and thresh, pack and go to the market. You realize that the last 2 months we've had unexpected rains. And whenever these rains come, definitely because of the fertility of the land and availability of moisture, weeds tend to regenerate, to grow, and they start competing with the crop. So you find that, unfortunately,
increase our revenue, not by taxing people more and more, actually put bluntly, not by taxing anything that can move. That seems, tempting to get money from. I think we should look at how do we broaden our tax base. And to do that, we need to facilitate business. We need to facilitate business so that they can do business much better, realize more profit, and it's that profit that we are interested in.
We need to look at how best we can be able to tap taxes within the agriculture sector. But that can only be achieved once we have invested as a country within our own agriculture sector so that it can be able to produce, and in the long run, as a country, we can be able to generate revenue from that. So if we are to be able to enhance our domestic resource mobilization, we need to first arrange our economy, because that is the key player. And if we don't put the sectors right, like I've been trying to break them down to you, then we cannot tax, because tax is on the profits. So if companies are not making profits, that ideally means education and sports. Administrators of private schools, meantime, have resisted the government's plan to regulate tuition. If the cabinet adopts it, they assert it will prevent private school operators and their rivals who run government-aided institutions from charging more than the allotted quotas. Numerous school administrators have voiced their concerns about how this government strategy will affect the provision of high-quality education.
The government has come up with a policy of regulating school fees and requirements, which policy I believe it will affect the education sector. Otherwise, initially, we knew, and as we know, that the government liberalized the economy, which gave the platform for the people who have the money to come and invest into the education sector. And they have put in whatever is needed to uplift the standard of the education. Therefore, if you come up one day and say that now you are limiting the actual fees and the requirements, to one way or another, it will affect the service that is given to the students, to the pupils, and to the parents as well.
About the issue of government regulating the fee structure for private schools, we all know that schools operate a different budget depending on the area where they are found. So the government coming in to regulate wouldn't be a bad idea if at all they had consulted the stakeholders, especially the private proprietors of the schools. This leaves us in a situation of confusion, whereby we have to meet the budget, but remember we are giving different services to the parents.
They further urge government to involve the entire value chain of stakeholders before making decisions that affect the sector.
So we are appealing to the government to make sure that they come to us, we talk, and see a win-win situation between the two parties, the stakeholders, the parent, because this one is going to affect the parent, the schools, and the proprietors of the schools. So we need to know what is our role in doing so. So it doesn't mean that the government just have to come out with a regulation and put it on us without consulting us, because it is going to affect both the learner and the teachers, as well as the entire community of the education sector.
My advice would be, let it involve all the stakeholders, because it may be that some are charging the amount beyond that it thinks, when they don't know, or when the government doesn't know what it all takes for them to charge that amount and what is embedded into the charges that actually they are charging, what service is being given to the students. So there is need to involve all stakeholders so that at least a compromise is actually met.
According to government, as schools resume business, a nursery pupil in a private school is expected to pay not more than 690,000 Ugandan shillings, and a primary school pupil who is a day scholar is expected to pay 650,000 Ugandan shillings, while their counterparts in the boarding section should not pay more than 1.2 million Ugandan shillings. Students in secondary and vocational schools should not exceed 960,000 Ugandan shillings. The policy also prohibits schools from charging students requirements that are not set by the school's charges and fees regulations committee. Owners of schools who defy this will be subjected to a fine of 20 million Ugandan shillings or 1 year imprisonment. Naomi Mtumba, Smart24 TV.
Yeah, this story coming up from private school proprietors trying to reject the government's move to regulate their schools. Getting to another story here, I saw the Minister of ICT going to Parliament to make a lot of alarms. They also blamed the Minister of Finance for failing them, that every time they make an order for money, either money comes late, and this has crippled the way of they have crippled their performance at the Minister of ICT. I saw the Minister for ICT, the State Minister for ICT, Kabyanga, trying to make key points at the Parliamentary Committee in Parliament. Let's have a look at this very story. And our reporter was on ground, Sanla Hanifa. Let's have a look.
The legislators on the ICT committee were informed by the officials from the ICT ministry, who were accompanied by the State Minister, Honorable Kabyanga Godfrey Baluku, that their main priority for this fiscal year is focused on connectivity broadband rollout, so that internet can reach every region of this country, because of the Parish Development Model Program needs data management system, and this can only be done via the internet.
This year is one to implement the last mile rollout and the connectivity broadband infrastructure. Now, after we have completed the NBI, we want now to distribute the internet. That's what we are calling the last mile, so that internet can reach parishes. Because right now,
according to the minister, they have so many programs like the Digital Transformation Program, Innovative Ecosystem, Private Sector Development System, among others, but all these have been slowed down due to the late release of funds.
The Parish Development Management Information System can't work without internet. So we want internet to reach everywhere, even in areas where other service providers can't go. For us as government, we want to reach there.
The parliamentarians who represent people with disabilities, on the other hand, have entrusted the ministry with bringing the certificate of compliance with gender and equity, which they did not bring with them when they presented their budget framework document.
The constitutional requirement under Article 32 of the Constitution on affirmative action and the rights of marginalized groups. It is also a constitutional requirement under Article 33 on the rights of women. These are all our national values, which we all cherish. Therefore, Chairman, when the Public Finance Management Act was being enacted, we may also made it a requirement that the Minister of Finance must always submit the certificate of compliance with gender and equity when presenting the budget to Parliament and the budget framework papers.
The MPs have also expressed worry over the ministry's failure to resolve the satellite problem, which has prevented many Ugandans from accessing free-to-air services despite funding for such initiatives having been approved by Parliament.
Nursing gaps and challenges to indicate the crisis the country is in right now as
shillings, which represents an increase over 52 billion shillings from the ICT budget for the fiscal year 2021-2022. Samlanifa, Smart24 TV.
Those have been the stories of the headlines in our weekly bulletin that we always make every Sunday at this very time in our program, The Business Edition. Make sure you get us on all our social media platforms. Let's go to Smart24 TV Official on Twitter, Smart24 TV Official on Facebook, and Smart24 TV Live on YouTube. You can as well follow me on my Twitter handle, that's @Pedson6. Let's meet again next Sunday. Stay around.
Smart24